Hello everyone, welcome back to FB Podcast. Today we will be dissecting a topic that may startle many people, but I believe it will be one of the most worth analyzing stories of this transfer season. Prepare yourself because the question I am about to ask you will probably make you exclaim, what sabe? Guys, just imagine this Man United after a disastrous season are on the brink of a revolution, and they are about to spend $60 million on a Brentford player. Sounds crazy, right? Absurd, right? But today I will prove to you why $60 million for Brian Mbeumo is very reasonable for Manchester United right now. A transfer without fancy words, without media gimmicks, but containing a profound strategy, a new philosophy that perhaps the Red Devils really need. Is this the real turning point for Man Utd under Ruben Amorim? Let's dive into the analysis right now. Dear brothers, to understand why the name Brian Mbeumo has become so hot in the eyes of Manchester United, we need to look back a bit on this player's journey and especially his last season. Let's start with Mbeumo. He's just finished the best season of his career, a truly explosive season, scoring 20 goals and providing 9 assists for a mid-table side like Brentford. Those stats alone would be enough to make any Premier League giant nod in admiration. It's not easy for a winger to contribute nearly 30 direct goals for a team that's not in the top tier. Looking back to 2019, when Brentford spent $5.4 million to bring Brian Mbeumo from Troyes, it was the highest transfer fee in the club's history at that time. This was not just a normal deal, but also an investment that made even the Brentford board of directors have unusually high expectation. Former centre-back Pontus Jansson once shared that at that time, sporting director Rasmus Ankinson confidently affirmed in an internal conversation, "We are about to buy a young player from France, and if he does not become a world-class player in the next few years, I will be very disappointed." Just hearing that, you can see a great confidence and belief in Mbeumo's talent, right guys? However, for most of his time at Brentford, Mbeumo was not the brightest name. He seemed to live in the shadow of Ivan Toney, the brightest star of the Bees. Mbeumo played quietly and steadily, but never really created a significant media explosion. The proof is that in Brentford's first 3 seasons in the Premier League, he scored 8, 9, and 9 goals respectively. The numbers were good enough to be recognized, but not enough to make people startled or talk about. He was a silent hero, a solid brick in the wall of Brentford, but then the 2024-25 season came and everything changed completely. With 20 goals and 8 assists, Brian Mbeumo became Brentford's main striker and was one of the 4 players with the most goals in the Premier League last season. What's more remarkable is that he did it in less than ideal circumstance. Brentford lost Ivan Toney to Analia last summer without a senior to share the scoring burden, and Mbeumo was forced to carry the attack alone with JNW. However, Brentford still flew high, leading the league for a period in home form and eventually finishing the season in 10th place. That shows Mbeumo's character and ability to withstand enormous pressure. Even coach Thomas Frank could not hide his admiration and pride when talking about his student. In an interview with Vplay, he shared, "I would be surprised if many big clubs did not follow Brian Mbeumo. I am amazed at what he can bring. How many wingers score 20 goals for a mid-table team, add 8 assists, add Mbeumo's work ethic and personality? All of that says he is a very quality player." Wait, it could not be more meaningful praise from a teacher who has worked with Mbeumo for many years, and it shows that the true value of this player lies not only in dry statistics. So what is it about Brian Mbeumo that makes him such an attractive target? He is not a flashy player, not a star player who you can sell shirts or advertise heavily, but he has all the ingredients to play a pivotal role in any system that puts efficiency first. Mbeumo has the ability to play on both wings and through the middle, is quick, has impressive stamina, and is especially good at finishing with both feet. He is a player who tends to work quietly, but always knows how to explode when the opportunity arises. This, in my opinion, is a quality that Manchester United are sorely lacking in a squad with so many unstable and impulsive personalities. Now let's move on to another perspective, that of Manchester United. As you all know, the 2024-25 season was a disaster for the Red Devil. They finished 15th in the Premier League, an unacceptable position for a club of Man Utd stature and ambition. What's more alarming is their scoring efficiency. They scored just 44 goals in 38 games, even fewer than Luton Town, and the team that was relegated last season. Think about it, even in the dark period after Sir Alex Ferguson, people had never seen Man United so dry. Those numbers are not simply the result of an ineffective attack, but also the result of a fragile team structure where almost no one really knows what they are playing with. A chaos, a lack of clear shape, that's what we saw at Man Utd last season. Man Utd's attack is really in trouble. Rasmus Højlund has only scored 4 goals in the domestic league. Names like Antony are no longer himself. Alejandro Garnacho is inconsistent, and even Bruno Fernandes, who is considered the last hope, is at risk of leaving with an offer of up to £100 million from Al Hilal. In addition, Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford are also on the clearance list. The situation is even more complicated when Garnacho is also said to want to leave and prioritize joining Chelsea. In that situation, Ruben Amorim understands that the first thing he needs to do is find the vertical axis for his new style of play. Ruben Amorim did not come to Old Trafford to patch up the squad. He came with a clear philosophy, a preferred 3-4-2-1 formation, and a high demand for transition. His attacking players, especially those in the winger and attacking midfield areas, had to be able to press, accelerate, play wide, drop deep, support the defense, and be ready to run without the ball for 90 minutes. And according to sources, Brian Mbeumo almost has all of those elements. With Ruben Amorim, Brian Mbeumo can play as a winger or one of the 2 number 10s behind the striker in his 3-man center back system. He can also drop deep as a false 9 when needed to stretch the opposition, creating space for the other defenders. And most importantly, as I said, Mbeumo is a quiet player who can explode when the opportunity arises. This is essential for a United side that needs stability and efficiency rather than impulsive moments from individuals. In fact, United had other options before. Stoke's youngster Liam Delap was considered their #1 target. But when Delap opted to join Chelsea for a fee of around $30 million, the Red Devils were forced to pivot. It was then that Mbeumo was pushed to the top of the list, not because he had run out of options, but because Amorim felt he was the type of player his system needed. Having spent 62 points to trigger Matthaus Cunha's release clause from Wolves, the first act in a rebuild of his attacking line, Amorim realized that Cunha was not a natural goal scorer. He needed a partner who could run shoot from close range and be sharp enough to exploit the space Amorim's system created. And in the current climate, Mbeumo was the option that could turn that theory into reality. So let's talk about that initial shock figure, 60 million. Is that a crazy price? Host Brentford manager Thomas Frank has made it clear that if Mbeumo is sold, it will be for a fair amount, a lot of money. Sky Sports sources suggest that the figure is above 60 million. Brentford are in a very strong position in negotiations. Mbeumo has just had his best season and he is under contract until 2026 with an option to extend for a further year. This gives Brentford the initiative and the upper hand in negotiations. Although Newcastle, a direct rival, have been reluctant and have suggested that $50 million would be a fair value if Mbeumo only has 12 months left on his contract. If Brentford do not trigger the extension clause, it is clear that Brentford could trigger that clause and keep Mbeumo or sell for a premium. The problem is Manchester United have already spent most of their summer budget after triggering Matthaus Cunha's £62.5 million release clause. That means any further signings will have to be accompanied by a squad cleanup. And this is where the constraints of profitability and financial sustainability start to tighten. As I mentioned, the names on the table include Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, Antony, and most notably Bruno Fernandes, with Al Hilal offering $100 million. Alejandro Garnacho is also keen to leave and is prioritizing a move to Chelsea, which complicates matters further. Therefore, spending a lot of money on a non-star player like Mbeumo is not only a question of utility value, but also a test of the transfer mindset of Ruben Amorim. Instead of continuing to pursue contracts with media or commercial values, big names, but may not be suitable in terms of tactics or cause financial imbalance, Man United is forced to switch to players who are suitable in terms of tactics, stable in terms of performance, and practical in terms of operating costs. Sources say that at this point, Manchester United are the only team capable of meeting Brentford's asking price and making an offer that is hard to refuse. This shows that if the Red Devils want to close the deal soon, they need to get ahead of the rest of the market, even if it means accepting a price that is considered extremely high. It is not a desperate option, but a strategic move. So in short, you see the $60 million Brian Mbeumo deal for Manchester United, although it sounded absurd at first, is completely very reasonable in the current context. It reflects a strong shift in the Red Devils transfer philosophy under Ruben Amorim. In the long term, investing in Mbeumo for $60 million may not be a social media sensation nor a superstar to build a brand, but it does give Manchester United a clear indication of their strategy. They are willing to choose the right player over the famous famous and choose a sustainable model over the flashy names. It is time for Man Utd to learn to look at the reality of value no longer being swept away by the fame they have become so accustomed to. No one can say for sure that Mbeumo is the ultimate solution to all the team's problems. Football is full of surprises. But one thing worth watching right now is how a player who has come through sheer effort, consistency, and efficiency fits into a team that is desperate for a rebirth. Sometimes the turning point doesn't come from the biggest signing, the brightest name, but from the right person. And for Manchester United, that choice could now be Brian Mbeumo. What do you think of this deal? Was 60 million for Mbeumo the right move for Manchester United? Is Brian Mbeumo really the piece Ruben Amorim is looking for to rebuild the Red Devils? And more importantly, is this a sign of a new, more rational, more sustainable transfer era for Man Utd? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and especially subscribe to the FB Podcast channel so you don't miss any in-depth analysis about football in the future. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episodes of the FB Podcast.